Hello and welcome to the West Asia Post. I am Ghadi Francis, coming to you from Beirut, Lebanon, with a fresh round of escalations from the world's most volatile region. This week, Israel assassinated top Hamas political leader Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran and top Hezbollah military commander Fuad Shukr in the southern suburb of Beirut. What might happen after these escalations? We have a lot lined up for you in this episode of the West Asia Post, but let's start as usual by taking a look at the headlines.
Israeli strike on Hodeidah port inflicted over $20 million in damages, says Yemen, after Israeli fighter jet strike on July 20th, a day after a Houthi drone hit Israeli economic hub of Tel Aviv. WHO says at least 85 sick and severely injured Palestinians from Gaza, including 35 children evacuated to Abu Dhabi for specialized care. Turkey blocks access to Instagram's social media network on Friday after a senior government official criticizes the platform for censoring content related to Hamas chief Ismail Haniyeh.
Hamas's chief political leader Ismail Haniyeh, the top negotiator, was assassinated in his residence in Tehran. Hamas says his residence was hit by a rocket. Other reports said a bomb was planted in the residence 2 months earlier. In Iran, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei vowed vengeance and said Israel has set a new order for this war. In the coming report, we decode what might happen and what took place in Iran. Take a look.
When I received news that my husband and 2 daughters were martyred, I was calm and accepting, and I gave in to God's will. My uncle, he called me. We had a video call and we were exchanging empowering words of the martyrdom of our family members. He said, "Oh, mothers of martyrs," and I said, "Oh, father of martyrs." We were smiling to each other in acceptance and faith that they have passed to heavens and we shall follow. He used to comfort me by saying, "This earthly life is definite. We are all on this road." We did not speak in sadness. We were comforting each other with patience and pride. No doubt that the death of your loved ones is hard. Losing them is hard and painful, but our respite is to meet in heavens.
Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei led prayers as thousands gathered to mourn the death of Hamas chief. Haniyeh's wife bid farewell to his coffin in Qatar, his last resting place. "You are my support in this life and the next. You are my love, my love. Say hello to all the martyrs of Gaza. Say hello to the leaders, to all Gaza's martyrs, all the Muslims. My love, may God make it easier for you." On Wednesday, around 1:45 a.m. local time, Ismail Haniyeh and his bodyguard were killed at his residence in Iran. He was in Tehran to attend the inauguration ceremony of Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian. Hours before the attack, Haniyeh reportedly visited a theme park exhibition of Axis of Resistance along with the leader of Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Ziad al-Nakaleh. Hamas spokesperson and deputy head Khalil al-Haya claims a rocket directly hit Haniyeh's room.
As for the accident, my dear brother, it's not clear from witnesses who were with brother Ismail Haniyeh, because it was a rocket that entered the room that the brother Ismail was in, and he was hit directly. And now we await full investigations from the concerned parties, our brothers, because this was clearly a rocket that destroyed glass and windows and some doors, as well as some walls. So therefore it is clear that the rocket from witnesses that were with him in this house have seen this.
Israel has neither confirmed nor denied responsibility for the killing. Israel's ally US said it's not aware or is not involved in the killing of the Hamas chief. However, Iran's supreme leader Khamenei vowed revenge for Haniyeh's assassination. He said it is Tehran's duty since the killing happened on its soil. Iran says Israel has set itself for harsh punishment. Reports suggest Khamenei has ordered to strike Iran directly. Iranian supreme leader and president will have tough choices to make. This decision could include Hezbollah, its closest ally in the region, stepping up attacks on Israel's north, or the Houthis expand their attacks in the Red Sea. The war could also expand to Lebanon. Prime Minister Netanyahu, however, says Israel is ready for any scenario.
Israel is highly prepared for any scenario, both defensively and offensively. We will exact a very heavy price for any act of aggression against us from any arena.
Hamas also will have to make choices. One of them would include finding a replacement for Ismail Haniyeh. Haniyeh was one of the top founding members of the group, who stayed in exile but was the diplomatic face of the ongoing ceasefire negotiations in Gaza. One of the top choices for Haniyeh's replacement is Khalid Mishal. Mishal survived an assassination attempt in 1997. This was when Israeli agents injected him with poison on a street outside his office in the Jordanian capital, Amman. Mishal became Hamas's political leader in exile the year before Israel tried to eliminate him, a post that enabled him to represent the group at meetings with foreign governments around the world. A second possible option is senior Hamas official Khalil al-Hayya. Khalil al-Hayya is based in Qatar and has headed Hamas negotiators in indirect Gaza truce talks with Israel. Khalil al-Hayya is close to Armed Wings Chief Yahya Sinwar. He is a fervent defender of armed resistance against Israel and lost several members of his family during a 2007 Israel airstrike. For Israelis and Western states, the Iran-backed Hamas, which has directed suicide bombings in Israel and fought frequent wars against it, is a terrorist group bent on Israel's destruction. For Palestinian supporters, Mishal and the rest of the Hamas leadership are fighters for liberation from Israeli occupation, keeping their cause alive when international diplomacy has failed them.
Now, Lebanon. We have been reporting for the past weeks about the escalations and the tensions and the tit-for-tat attacks between the Lebanese Hezbollah and the Israeli forces. Now, in the recent, Israel attempted an assassination operation in the heart of the southern suburb of Beirut. 7 civilians died, more than 70 were injured, and a top Hezbollah commander, Fuad Shukr, was assassinated. Now, in retaliation, Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, the chief leader of Hezbollah, has vowed vengeance. He promised the Israelis that this has made the war enter in a new phase, promising a very hard retaliation. The next report tells you more.
Hezbollah confirmed its top military commander, Fuad Shukr, died in Beirut on Tuesday. 24 hours after an Israeli strike hit a building in Beirut. Shukr was killed hours after the death of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh in Iran. Pledging to respond to both killings, Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah declared that the war is open on all fronts.
Al-Hudaydah is being bombed in Yemen, and Jof al-Sakr was being bombed yesterday or the day before yesterday in Iraq. And Commander Fuad Shukr is being killed in Dahiyeh. These are no longer fronts. This is an open battle on all fronts, and it has entered a new phase.
Israel says it will exact a heavy price for any revenge attacks.
There are challenging days ahead of us. Since the attack in Beirut, threats have been heard from all sides. We are prepared for any scenario and will stand united and determined against any threat. Israel will exact a heavy price from any aggression against us on any front.
Israel says Fuad Shukr was responsible for the missile strike that killed 12 children playing football in Mashtal Shams in the occupied Golan Heights on Saturday. Hezbollah denied the claims, and called for an international investigation. Fuad's Shukr killing was the heaviest blow to Hezbollah's command since the 2008 assassination of Imad Mughniyeh, also known as Al-Hajj Mohsen. Shukr was part of a generation of Lebanese Shiite Muslims who mobilized in 1982 to fight Israeli troops who invaded Lebanon that year. Shukr was also known to be Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah's military advisor. The Israeli military said Shukr was responsible for much of Hezbollah's most advanced weaponry, including precision-guided missiles, cruise missiles, anti-ship missiles, long-range rockets, and drones.
Yesterday afternoon, we had the opportunity to kill Mohsen. Mohsen is the most senior military figure in the Hezbollah. He's also very close to Nasrallah. He actually arranges for him all things military, used to arrange for him in the past tense.
Hezbollah and the Israeli forces have been trading fire since October 7th last year. However, with the latest escalation, Hezbollah says Israel has crossed all red lines, and the only way to stop the bloodshed is a ceasefire in Gaza. Israeli forces say they won't stop their operations until they achieve a complete victory in the Gaza Strip.
Just a little after assassinating Ismail Haniyeh, the Israeli forces have announced that they have successfully killed and targeted 2 weeks ago Mohammed al-Deif, a top military leader in Hamas group. But this wasn't confirmed by Hamas. On the contrary, this was denied. We tell you more in the next report.
Israeli forces have announced that Hamas's top military commander Mohammed Deif had been killed. The announcement came just a day after Ismail Haniyeh, Hamas's political bureau chief, had been assassinated. The IDF says Deif was killed in the July 13th strike in Al-Mawasi, a designated safe zone in Gaza's Khan Yunis. The attack killed at least 90 civilians and wounded 300 others. Immediately after the July 13 attack, Israeli military said it acted on intelligence to hit an area where quote-unquote 2 senior Hamas terrorists and fighters were hiding among civilians. While Hamas did not confirm the killing of Deif, the Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant described Mohammed Deif as the Osama bin Laden of Gaza. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called Deif as Israel's #1 man for years.
After we eliminated the day before yesterday the military chief of Hezbollah, Musan, today came the final confirmation of the elimination of Hamas military chief Mohammed Deif. Deif was responsible for the terrible massacre of October 7th and also for many murderous attacks against the citizens of Israel. He was Israel's #1 wanted man for years. His elimination establishes a simple principle that we established. Whoever hurts us, we hurt him.
A key figure who planned suicide bombings leading to the deaths of dozens of Israelis, Deif was one of the founding members of Hamas's military wing, the Al-Qassam Brigades, in the 1990s. On the morning of October 7, Hamas issued a rare voice recording of Deif announcing Operation Al-Aqsa Storm against Israel. The country identified him and Hamas's Gaza leader Yahya Sinwar as the chief architects of the October 7 attack that killed over 1,000 people in southern Israel and triggered the country's military onslaught in Gaza. Sinwar is still believed to be directing military operations, possibly from bunkers beneath the enclave. He is also believed to be playing a leading role in indirect negotiations with Israel for a prisoner swap deal. With a string of killings in the Hamas group, starting with Haniyeh's deputy Saleh al-Aruri in Beirut, Haniyeh himself in Tehran, and now the reported death of Mohammad Deif, the chances of attaining a hostage deal look slim. 10 months into the Gaza war, the death toll continues to mount. Israeli forces have ended a week-long incursion in the city. Gaza's Defense Civil Agency says that almost 300 bodies have been unearthed in the ruins of Khan Yunis.
This massacre is unacceptable. Every day there is a massacre at Abu Hamid roundabout, and every day I go there at the same time and the same thing happens.
Aside from the war, there's the question of morality. In the past week, there was a clash between the Israeli police and Israeli soldiers in Sidi Timan prison. The Israeli police were coming to detain the soldiers to question them after allegations of abuse of prisoners, of Palestinian prisoners. The next report tells you more about this Israeli problem.
Since the October 7th attack on southern Israel, Palestinian prisoners are facing all kinds of torture in Israeli prisons. According to a UN Human Rights Office report, this includes waterboarding, sleep deprivation, and electric shocks. Israeli prison authorities have over 9,400 detainees. The UN says some of them are held in secret places without access to lawyers or respect for legal rights. On Monday, riots broke out at the SDE Taiman Detention Center, where 9 Israeli soldiers were arrested on suspicion of raping a Palestinian detainee. A crowd gathered outside the army base in southern Israel and broke through the gates. Israeli politicians of Prime Minister Netanyahu's far-right coalition were also part of the riot.
The soldiers in this country are a consensus. If they touch our soldiers, we'll build a shield wall. The people will rise up against the government, be it left or right or whatever. Nobody can touch our soldiers. Not the people who died defending us, not my friends who died defending us.
The Israeli military has ordered an inquiry into the incident. The protesters at the Beit Laith military base held Israeli flags and chanted shame against the arrest of Israeli soldiers. The rights group said the Palestinian detainee is seriously wounded after the assault and has been hospitalized in southern Israel. Israel's parliament, the Knesset, is on a summer break. However, far-right MPs called for an emergency meeting to defend the arrested soldiers. Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich called the suspects heroic warriors. Israel's military chief, Lieutenant General Herzi Halevi, condemned the riots. He said the ongoing investigation will only restore the honor of the Israeli military. Ever since the start of the Gaza war, the Israeli parliament has reportedly increased administrative detention under the Unlawful Combatants Law. The United Nations has for long raised concern about conditions for Palestinian detainees in Israeli prisons. It warns that the situation has only worsened since the war began. On July 3rd, UN decried reports of abuse against Palestinian detainees from the West Bank. That was when Israeli troops reportedly tied a wounded Palestinian to a military vehicle during a raid in the West Bank city of Jenin.
It's clear that it is sickening to see totally unacceptable treatment, and there absolutely needs to be a transparent and independent investigation in this regard. so that we can find out what happened and to ensure that those who committed these acts are brought to justice.
Ceux qui ont commis ces actes soient mis à la justice.
In the middle of all this tension in West Asia, the United States of America has already also played its part. The Americans striked Iraq. They called it a defensive attack, but the Iraqis called it a heinous crime. Take a look.
Amid the escalating tensions in West Asia, for the first time in months, the United States launched an airstrike on Iraq. US officials called it an act of self-defense. The strike hit a base in South Baghdad, used by Iraq's Popular Mobilization Forces. Iraqi forces said that the attack killed 4 members of the group that includes several Iran-aligned armed militias and wounded 4 others. Iraq's Popular Mobilization Forces made no accusations about who was responsible for the attack. A US official said that the airstrike was carried out in Iraq's Babil province. He added that the militias were trying to launch drones against US-led coalition forces. Iraq condemned the strike, saying that the US-led military coalition committed a heinous crime. Baghdad also said that the attacks violated the coalition's mission and mandate. Tuesday's action marked the first known US strike in Iraq since February, when the US military launched airstrikes in Iraq and Syria against over 85 targets linked to Iran's Revolutionary Guard. The 150,000-strong Popular Mobilization Forces is a state-sanctioned grouping of Iraqi paramilitaries. It is dominated by heavily armed and battle-hardened groups loyal to Iran with close ties to its Revolutionary Guards. Iraq is a rare ally of both the US and Iran. At present, around 2,500 troops are stationed in Iraq, and Iraq wants troops from the US-led military coalition to begin withdrawing in September and finish withdrawal within a year. An Iraqi delegation also went to Washington to discuss this framework last week. The issue is highly politicized. Iran-aligned Iraqi political factions are seeking to show they are again pushing out the country's one-time occupier, while US officials want to avoid this perception.
That's all we have on this episode of the West Asia Post. I will see you next week with a brand new lineup, always bringing you the most recent updates, news and ground reports from the world's most volatile region. I am Ghadi Francis, signing off from Beirut, Lebanon. For more global news, keep on watching WION World is One.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other conditions. We use the traditions of centuries-old natural science from India, yoga, Ayurveda,